Today, we're going to talk about cravings. That's something that's been sort of coming up a lot. I mean, it's always there. And there's so much more to cravings than what we perceive there to be. And I think the big issue a lot of people think with cravings is that, well, it becomes something that you internalize as if like there's something wrong with me. I don't have the willpower. I just need to cut it out completely, yada, yada, yada. So we're going to shed some light on that. And, with the hypnosis, it's very powerful when you are able to be in a space where you're open and receptive to the actual hypnosis. And that includes like being in the moment, being open to the guidance, and being in a quiet space and headphones on, ideal so you're not hearing other things. And then it also means like nurturing that process, right? Like watering the seeds. I always think about like the mind like a beautiful garden, in that if you just let a garden go, like nobody has ever grown a beautiful garden on accident. We know it's challenging, it takes work. And if you just have the idea of a garden in your backyard, but you or nobody else actually tends to it, then it's just going to overflow. There's going to be a lot of weeds. It's just not going to be any resemblance of a beautiful garden. However, if you take the time to nurture it, and part of nurturing it isn't just like laying the bed and getting the right soil and planting the seeds, like that's all important. Those are important first steps. But then after that, it's watering it. It's making sure you are weeding out. And that's why I love that analogy when it comes to the mind, because nature is going to grow weeds, just as in the mind, we're naturally going to grow automatic negative thoughts. They're just going to arise. If you can understand this and nothing else, this will serve you very well on your journey, especially feeling good about yourself as you should and you deserve to feel. Our brains aren't designed for happiness. They're just not. They're designed for survival. And that can confuse our reality to make us feel overly anxious and overly fearful because your system is at a heightened state. Deregulated nervous system is something we talk a lot about. So I encourage you guys, think of your mind like a garden. Be aware when nature brings in poisonous plants and weeds so you can pull them out. As you're pulling out the weeds, it's kind of an inherent exchange of like, oh, there they are again. I just got a weed. I just got to pull them out. Like we accept that. We accept that grass is going to grow by itself. So it's just a sort of an objective thing of like, oh, we just got to cut it. But when it comes to our internal minds, we have a hard time accepting that we're going to have negative thoughts. That's just a part of your survival. Part of the human species survival is to have negative thoughts. But it doesn't mean those thoughts are real. It doesn't mean that you need to entertain them. It doesn't mean you're a bad person for having them. Like just because you have a thought doesn't mean you're going to act on that thought. It doesn't represent who you are. So when you can understand those things, we can start to treat them more objectively. And when you have more objectivity, you have more clarity. When you have more clarity, you'll be more calm, you'll be less overwhelmed, and you'll be able to be consistent in all the things that you want to do. With that in mind, let's get into a little bit more about cravings, because sometimes they can hit and you can feel like, oh man, game over. And especially if you don't understand what's going on and why they're there, you can feel like you're always out of control. And I think I've mentioned this every single live and almost every conversation I get in, but I can't stress it enough. Like, watch yourself if you say things like, I'm not disciplined, or I just don't have control. That is not true. That's just not true. Now, yes, you may not be applying that to cravings right now, but I can guarantee you're applying self-control and discipline to other elements of your life. So it's not that you don't have it. It's just that we have to build that congruence. And when these four things get in your way, if you're not aware of them, well, it's kind of hard to recognize that and to take a step back. If you think about cravings as something you have to fight, then you're really fighting the wrong thing. And you're fighting a game that you're never going to win, because they're just not going to go away. To say that individuals need to be on a GLP for the rest of their life, that's just how you are, that is so disempowering and not true. Our brains' genetics haven't changed over the course of 30 years to say all of a sudden people have this deficiency where they can't control their eating. Like, that's just not accurate. There's so many other things that go into it that is not someone's brain chemistry. But the reason why they're pinning it on brain chemistry is because if that is the issue, then what's the solution? Medicine. And if the solution is medicine, guess what they get to do? Get paid, baby. That's what it is. If you're going to be on the rest of your life, gosh, that's a ridiculous amount of money that they're looking to make from it. And I say all of this to say, again, there's nothing wrong with GLP-1s if they're used as a bridge to be on the rest of your life. I believe in human potential way too much. I've worked with too many people who have had obesity their entire life, morbidly obese their entire life, and all of a sudden turn that around. Their brain didn't change. Yes, maybe we worked on some subconscious patterning, but like, you just can't convince me otherwise. And so I would just encourage you to say, if someone's telling you you've got to be on a medication to control your weight for the rest of your life, I wouldn't trust that person. I just wouldn't. Now that the term food noise is becoming a thing where people will say like, well, when I'm on, say, Ozempic, it goes away. And when I'm off of it, it comes back. Therefore, I need to be on it. And again, it's like, well, think about this. Like, if you took something as a method to reach a certain goal, that one thing was driving what led to you getting closer to that goal, but nothing else changed, why would you expect it to go away when you get off of it. And that's not your fault. I mean, this is not what they're telling you in commercials. They don't tell you that. So I guess my point is like, I think food noise is such an issue is because people are deceived to think that, well, if I just take this, then I'll be good. And then when they stop taking it, they're like, oh no, I'm not good. I need this. But it's like, well, what was given to that person to help them deal with all the thoughts that they've had around food, maybe their entire life? Nothing in most cases. So yeah, of course it's still there. That whole idea there is just to help people realize like, we just need to turn it down and realize you have control over it and really understand what it is. When you do that, you can start to gain a better sense of control. But if you just don't do any of that and just expect a program or a pill or a surgery to just remove that, it's not going to work. The brain, the internal part, has a big part of any type of transformation. True transformation is an inside out, outside in transformation. So if you only try to affect your outside, which is what a GLP would do, or a gastric bypass or gastric sleeve, because it's just helping the externals. Yeah, you can argue, oh, well, the gastric sleeve or something will strengthen your stomach. Okay, I can understand that. But the delivery mechanism is really that you're just eating less, essentially, and therefore losing weight. But if you don't change anything about how you think about yourself and how you think about eating, and if you don't learn foundational principles of nutrition, then you're going to be right back where you started. Cravings are not a discipline problem. They are a pattern. And when I talk about gaining back control, I want to be able to separate that. You don't inherently not have control. That's where I say, like, we can work with the brain. I look at it more like software and a computer. Like, if you have a computer, you can upload new software onto it. And with that premise, you have control over what that computer's output's going to be. They don't teach emotional intelligence. They don't teach things that help mental health and stress regulation. And so if you had some insecurities, if you had a traumatic life, if you're going through a lot and all these things boil together, well, of course, you're having a hard time controlling your eating. But that's not a reflection of who you are or what you are. So we just need to think about it as like, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with the computer in that example. We just need to update a new program. That's all. Your brain works perfectly fine. There's things that you've learned that you didn't know before, right? It sounds silly to say that. So to then say that you can't learn to control your cravings, I'm not buying that. This is a technique that works really well. And this is something I learned through bodybuilding. Whenever you brush your teeth, talking about training, you've trained your body to not eat after you brush your teeth. Your body has been trained for that inadvertently because you go to bed after, but you also have this sort of like the flavors in your mouth, like just nothing tastes good after you brush your teeth. So you're used to that. So there's mouthwash spray you can spray in your mouth. There's mouthwash you can swivel. Brushing your teeth early, that works too. So cravings come from 4 places. And if you don't understand these, you're going to always feel out of control. So the first one is physiological. So when your blood sugar dips, because you got to think about your brain affects your blood sugar and your blood sugar affects your brain. In other words, like when you're using your brain, you're burning a lot of calories. You need calories, you need nutrition. So your blood sugar is going to get out of whack. If you ate lunch at 12, you get home at 6, and from 12 to 6, you had a really stressful day using your brain. Yeah, when you get home, that's not a willpower thing. That's a very normal response. Like, hey, I need food fast. If you feel like you're getting a craving, that's kind of what's happening. Your body's like asking for sugar. The way we can kind of take back control is one step at a time, but it starts with awareness. And if we're going to prioritize, it would be the next thing that I wanted to share, which is emotional, the nervous system. It's the stress response. When you have high stress, it seeks relief because your psyche needs something, especially again in the world we live in, right? Like you can't really find relief if you're on social media, if you're working in an office with people, you're at a family dinner with people with different opinions, you can't escape chaos. And like our brains are not designed to know about the entire world's problems and all these negative people you might see get filtered through your algorithms online. Like we're just not. So when you're constantly taking all of that in regularly, and your brain, by the way, is already programmed for what? Not happiness, programmed for survival. And food is that resort for people oftentimes. So stress can obviously lead to these types of decisions because you're seeking relief, looking for some sort of stimulation. A lot of people say, I eat when I'm bored at night, or I eat when I'm bored. And it just becomes a thing. And this is why getting control of your eating is so hard, because things like stress can affect it and boredom can affect it. And then also there's a physiological element of like your body actually needs it to function. It's very confusing on the brain of like, wait, this is good. I need this. This is fuel. This is not what's going on, but this makes me feel good short term. Just a lot going on. The other thing that's happening too, because of all the chaos, is overwhelm. There's just too many things happening at once, but it's not impossible. And you have the power to take it back. I promise you. You just got to be open to it and keep doing your best. That's it. We can't just say food makes us feel good, because it doesn't. That's an incomplete statement, because it doesn't make you feel good after. It might in a moment, but very seldomly are looking back an hour later being like, man, I'm really glad I binged there. I feel so good right now. Or the next day, waking up and like not having some level of shame or regret. Like that normally is always always the case whenever you overeat. Something you didn't want, damn it, I did it again. What does that do to your self-esteem? Doesn't help it. So the acceptance part is the grace, because all these things that we talk about, again, we are human. I am messy. You're messy. Everybody that's ever existed in this planet, everybody who you look up to online, that person is messy too. You put somebody else on a pedestal, you're minimizing yourself. It's not about being perfect. It's just about recognizing that this is a process. It's not a linear process. You can challenge the status quo by saying, I will not stand for this. I'm going to find a way. And if you have that mindset, you will.